gonna make some fresh cod today. This is a very, very simple broth flavored with some Asian ingredients. We have some white miso, which is like fermented soybean paste. Adds wonderful flavor to things. Ginger, shallots, garlic. It's all gonna be in a broth. We're gonna add a little bit of sake, some water, some tamari, which is a gluten-free soy sauce, a little sesame oil, all the classic Asian flavors that we all love, and maybe finish it with a little fresh lime juice. And of course, it's all about this beautiful fresh cod. So I'm gonna start by taking a little canola oil, putting it in a pan. Now you can see this pan, I'm gonna actually steam, or I'm going to cook the cod in the broth, okay? So it's gonna be a very, very healthy dish, but we wanna make sure that it's flavorful. That's the key. Just because something is healthy doesn't mean it doesn't have to have any flavor. So I'm gonna show you how to really get some flavor into something incredibly healthy. So I'm gonna start with some shallots. You know, shallots are those little sort of small like onions. They're a lot sweeter than onions. If you don't have shallots, you can't find shallots, onions work fine as well. But I kind of love that sort of savory flavor that shallots sort of leave behind in the oil that you're sauteing. And then we have some fresh garlic cloves. Of course, we all know that brings tons of flavor to the game. And then some fresh ginger that we grated. So much flavor, just these three ingredients. Shallots, ginger, and garlic. Just let them cook for a second, kind of open them up. Then we're gonna take some sake, and made out of rice, of course. And we're just gonna let that reduce. Not actually have to let it reduce. I just want the alcohol to cook off. I want to save the flavor of that sort of that fermented rice in there. We're gonna let the sake cook off, let the alcohol cook off. Then we're gonna add some water. And then I'm gonna add the mushrooms. So we have some shiitake mushrooms sliced up very thinly and some oyster mushrooms as well. And we're just gonna let these poach in the broth. And then I'm gonna add the miso, which to me is really, truly one of the keys to this entire dish. It has, you know, what they call that umami flavor. Umami's like, you know, it tastes so good you can't even describe what it tastes like. So we're gonna add this to the broth, and it's also gonna create like a little bit of some viscosity to the broth too. But it's definitely, you know, a very liquidy broth. You know, when you go to the Japanese restaurant or a sushi bar and you start off with a little bit of miso soup, that's kind of what this broth is like. But we're gonna make sure it has tons of flavor. You wanna make sure all the miso dissolves into the water in the sake. The miso is even gonna take the mushrooms taste even more mushroomy. That's what happens. They kind of play off each other. And then I'm gonna add a little bit of tamari, which is some gluten-free soy sauce. So we don't really need any extra salt on this. And then we have some other ingredients here. We have some scallions that I've sliced. We have some cilantro. I'm gonna add those at the very end, and also like a splash of lime. We're gonna put a little toasted sesame oil in here. Now remember, the toasted sesame oil is very, very strong. So just a couple of drops of this, and you're good. And then I'm gonna slice up my cod into like bigger pieces, kind of like that. And I'm gonna put the cod right into the broth. I'm gonna turn the broth down to a very low simmer. Just drop the cod in. And then you want to make sure that you cover it so you keep all the steam in. And then just a very, very low simmer, just until the cod cooks all the way through. This cod is a little thin, so it's only going to take a handful of minutes, maybe 3 minutes. The broth is going to keep getting better. The broth and the cod are going to become friends in there. And when it comes out, we're going to put some of the scallions in there, some of the cilantro, and we're going to finish it with a little crunch, so some fresh snap peas that we sliced up very thinly. So flavorful, and it tastes so healthy, and I mean that in a good way. Okay, I like to finish this up with some freshness, so a little bit of lime juice, freshly squeezed lime. Getting that acidity in there is just gonna brighten this entire dish up. And then we have some scallions, a little fresh cilantro, and then at the very last second, some snap peas. But as I said, we want them at the very last second because we want to retain its crunch. And basically, ready to go. Steaming bowl of cod with tons of flavor.